Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn is back for our monthly chat today, Thursday, August 28th, 2025. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Visit afpwisconsin.com and join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. With that, we welcome back on the show our guest who joins us on the last Thursday of every month, Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn. Romaine, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Another Thursday. How is it the end of the month already?
I know.
I feel like I was just on here a couple weeks ago.
I know, seriously, I thought the same thing like on Monday or yesterday, whenever it was. Earlier this week. I'm like, all right, I got to put up the announcement for the guest Thursday. I'm like, Romaine, no, that's not right.
Full disclosure, until I read your announcement yesterday, I forgot I was coming on your show this morning.
See, sometimes I think that's so funny because that's what I actually think sometimes, that our guest forgets they're going to be on until I post something. Like, oh, that's right.
I just forgot it was end of August, so it's not you, it's me.
No, and this is
Ben. It's the highlight of my month.
Okay, let's move on from that. This is actually, our last Facebook Live show, which is kind of like bringing it full circle because you were our second guest ever on Facebook Live 8 years ago-ish? 7, 8 years ago?
He's always first. Yep.
Yeah, Fitzy. Oh, by the way, as soon as the show is finished, you may want to go to our website.
Really?
Just saying.
All right. Check her out.
I have an announcement to post after the show. So you'll see that. So I literally, this is going to be great because you're not in session. I had nothing. I mean, I usually don't prepare too much for this, kind of like just to be organic, but I like to have a few topics. I really don't have anything today. I did find something like 2 minutes before we went live. There was some headlines. This is from WPR. State audit confirms shortfall in revenues in fish and wildlife account in Wisconsin. And the other one is on WisPolitics, which is Dem bill to renew stewardship program, proposes 17-member oversight board. So I don't really understand either of those things. So you want to talk about one of them?
Yeah, no, I got the call yesterday or 2 days ago from Senator Wimberger, who chairs or co-chairs the audit committee. And that's where we have our own separate auditors that we instruct them. We can do a couple of them a year, depending on how expansive they are, to really do a deep dive into whatever it is, DPI, Milwaukee public school system, that their financial situation is unknown and a mess at the same time. And then we said we need to do the wildlife account, because if there's ever going to be any discussion about charging people more, higher fees or licenses to enjoy the outdoors, fishing, hunting, your trout stamp, your waterfowl stamp, etc., we need to know where the money's spent, and for sure it's spent exactly the way hunting men and women believe it should be. So we ordered the audit. We know the wildlife account, at least from our general accounting, is underwater. Every budget, we've been stealing money out of the forestry account and plugging that in to make sure operations can continue going. Now the audit has dropped. I haven't read the whole thing yet. It's about 70 pages, but some of the highlights are showing that we are spending more and more on administration and not necessarily on the items we used to. And it's been a shift from 60% of every dollar used to be on the ground for those purposes, and now it's down to like 50 or under 50%. So as men and women in the outdoors, they want to know, how's the money being spent? Some are willing to pay more if that's what it takes. Like if we can get back to the days of really improving habitat and outcomes for hunting and fishing men and women, they're probably willing to pay more, but where is it going to, right? So that's the fear. So the audit's the first step. Now we examine it. Now we bring the department in. Now we do some more deep dive on it and then say, how can we do a better job? And then do we actually need more revenue? Does there need to be a fee increase or not? And those are the conversations now we can finally have that the audit's done.
Why can you now finally have it? Well, hold on, let me back up. So you sit on joint finance, so you guys basically do the budget. Is this accurate? I would assume this is accurate. When you're sitting there, and let's say, I'll just make up a number, like any department, $100 million is their budget for that department. And they come in and they say, we need $5 million more, and here's why. But when you then look through all of their current $100 million budget, you're going, well, looking at this from 20 years ago, that's $7.5 million. We could get rid of $2.5 million out of that, or $5 million out of that, to get you down to $2.5 million. There's your $5 million. Does that
Yep.
does that get received well? So, 'cause I'm assuming that's where you kind of start the budget. You look at what they're currently doing.
Yep. Absolutely. But we don't do as deep of a dive, depending on the area, as maybe we'd like to, especially not in the time frame of the budget. So
Okay.
the Fish and Wildlife account is one account within DNR, right? There's a forestry account, there's other accounts, and then in there's intermixed, like how do we pay wardens? Is some of their salary out of the wildlife account or is it out of the general account?
Sure.
And we're finding in the audit, like a lot of their expenses administratively are being shared with other areas. And now we can ask ourselves, to your point, is it appropriate to be paying for this out of this account? Is this why the wildlife account is being drained? And is that an appropriate use of funds? Like, as an example, we pay for our state patrol out of the DOT budget. Now, someone argue, well, is that an appropriate place, or do we take state patrol out and use that money to actually fix roads, not actually fund the state patrol salaries and fringes, right?
Sure.
And so these are the kinds of things conversations we can have now, because we don't get that granular into the department during that budget process.
So on the budget process, so what was the budget? What was the number that you guys started with this year? Wasn't it just last year's number?
Oh man, yep. So we started at base. That's what we do.
What does that mean?
So we start where we left off, and so some conversations are going on now about we never do real deep review going backwards, because we're always basing off what was today and now let's move forward.
Okay, wait. What?
Yep. So that
seems kind of dumb.
It's dumb, but it's not at the same time, because it prevents us from doing basic. So we have two options, right? You can work from what are you spending today? What are you going to be making the next 2 years? And then we review that, right? Do we need a little more for gas? Do we need a little, like a household budget, right? You bring in $4,000 a month. You think you're going to bring in $5,000 a month by the end of the year. And so you're going to start budgeting now. What could we spend that money on? Maybe I need a little more for clothes. Maybe I need a little more for utilities are going up, whatever that is, right? But we don't always go back and say, what is in the original $4,000?
Yeah.
It was appropriated. It probably had a purpose, but there isn't always a deep dive going that far back. And when, in government, it's very hard to repeal a program, right? Once it exists.
I get it, but at any point, do we?
No, we do. So even, for instance, like positions, the governor wanted to add 1,300 positions this budget, adding state employees. Not only did we not add 1,300, we cut 300, because we go back and say, okay, how many vacancies are there in your department for the last 6 months or 12 months or 18 months? And now departments are getting good at shifting people around to reset the clock, so we can't find the holes and who they're not hiring or hiring. And so we go back and we do those kinds of reviews, like, okay, this position's open and it's in this program. Is this program really needed? Why can't you find an employee for it? Or not only that, the program seems to be working just fine and you haven't filled this position in 18 months. So why are you hiring this employee? And so we can them, right? We eliminate the position. So there's some of that goes on. But to your point, there's no real deep dive of, give me a list of every program created between 90 and 95. And is it still relevant in DHS, in whatever it is? And maybe they are, right? Maybe they're still relevant, but maybe they're not. A lot has changed in the last 30 years on how we operate. So I think we're going to get to that point, especially with AI. So AI is scary as hell, but I think there's huge opportunities in state government to embed AI to not only improve services from the state for the public that they expect, but also get a better bang for our buck. What data entry, things like that we have people for that, could be replaced or supplanted with AI. But government's always, 15 years behind the private sector. So it's going to take time. I had Google in my office and I said, if I name your price, like if I gave you $100 million contract to find me, $110 million in savings, I'll let you keep the 10 difference. Could you do that? Like, come into the state government, use your expertise, show us where our flaws are. Whatever savings you find, I'll give you 10%. Write up the contract, and like, oh yeah, we could do that. Like, we could so embed AI into these state agencies to improve outcomes, but we just don't do it, and we should be.
Why don't we do it?
because we're government.
There you go.
Because this is the way we've always done it.
And that's the
Yep. See, in the reality, Ben, if DrydenWire doesn't do it and your costs are growing and your revenues don't match it, you cut costs, right?
Yep.
Or you find a way to implement AI because you can't hire that second person, but you need help.
Yep.
The state government looks at it and says, man, we're short. How can we raise more revenue? That's always the answer. That's always the question. How can we nickel and dime someone else a little more to fill the hole? Not go back and say, man, maybe we need to restructure. And so that's the problem. It's the mindset. So the mindset of who you elect is important because it's very hard, even when we're in control, to turn the ship of the bureaucracy that's been going for 50 years. But now imagine if half the legislature is made up of people that just say, how do we find more revenue? Not how do we get more efficient? So I think that's really the core difference between the parties, frankly.
I was just going to ask that. Is that a fair assessment to say that
It's very
high
level, but I would say it's 80% accurate for most legislators that are in office.
Really?
How it breaks down. And a lot of it breaks down. If you look at our backgrounds, like right or wrong, I have a lot of members in my caucus. They own their own small businesses. They were attorneys. They were veterinarians. They were accountants. And they took time off from that to come give back and offer service. There's other people on the other side. It's the best job they'll ever have. It's the most money they'll ever make. Which is fine, right? But it's just they come from different life perspectives that they don't maybe bring a skill set in that encourages government to be more efficient.
All right. The other article that I'd seen this morning, this was on WIS Politics, says Dem bill to renew stewardship program proposes 17-member oversight board. Would you walk me through that? What is a stewardship program? I was reading some of it, and I got more confused as I went on. It was about buying land?
Yep. So
what is this?
The stewardship program has been around for many years. Many people know it as Knowles-Nelson, and it's used for a number of things, but predominantly is to help organizations or other governments purchase public land. So Washburn County, Mike Peterson calls the Forestry Committee in. There's 120 acres coming for sale, and it butts our existing county forest. How do we come up with the money, fair market value, to buy this, to add to county forest, to add for recreation, for your ability to raise revenue, right? You make a lot of money off your forestry department. And so maybe you can't foot the whole bill. You go to the state, you apply for a Knowles-Nelson grant that maybe covers $100,000 out of the $400,000 bill. State helps you buy it and maintain that land. Has to be maintained for the public, for public use in perpetuity. So that was the big premise behind it, right?
That sounds virtuous. I mean, it's not virtuous. Maybe that's the wrong word. So far, I'm liking this.
Yep. And most people do. Poll after poll shows people support that. People support public land.
And that sounds like this would be on both sides of the aisle, right? I mean, this isn't a... It sounds like this is... Okay, good.
So, but like anything, you need oversight. And recently, how the process would work is that the DNR would come in to the Joint Finance Committee with maybe a list of projects that they are going to award stewardship money to. And the Joint Finance Committee could object if they wanted to. And so we've done that in the past. So historically, Joint Finance has approved over 90% of all requests from the DNR on stewardship. Maybe 10% have been held up by members. Because members then call and say, okay, this is in the town of Glen Flora. You call the town chair of Glen Flora. Do you support this project? Do you support taking this private property off the tax rolls, right? Because remember, once you make it public land, you get pennies on the dollar for a tax base. No one can build a home there. No one can build a business there.
Oh,
no one can,
sure.
Right? And so there's a lot of conversations like in the parts where stewardship is there already enough public land? Is there not enough land for people to be able to buy a 40 and build a home and raise their family? So there's a lot of push and pulls on it. Everyone supports the idea of stewardship. Everyone supports public land. But how much is enough? Where should it be? How much should we spend? So my biggest complaint very early on and under Governor Walker, we required the DNR to sell off 10,000 acres of their least valuable land. A one-off 40 that's not connected to a state land, a one-off 80 that's not, right? Or there's very little access. No one uses it. And then use that to pay down stewardship debt. Because we did realize everyone supports stewardship, but stewardship is paid for on a credit card. So that's my criticism of the Democrats' bill they just introduced. $70 million a year. We're running the numbers right now. How fast are we paying off stewardship debt versus adding debt? Like, we made a lot of progress under Walker to whittle that down. We were bonding $100 million a year and not paying down $100 million a year over the life of our existing debt. So it kept ballooning.
Yeah.
At some point, we were paying a couple $1 million every month just in interest on stewardship debt. So we whittled it back. Under Republicans, we were spending $33-ish million a year. Trying to bend that curve, right? We're adding public land, but the amount of debt is going down as we're still running the program, right? Trying to bend that curve. I don't think $70 million a year does that. And we're running the numbers right now. But I would encourage my Democratic colleagues to look at the bill that's already out there. So stewardship, essentially, since it was not reauthorized in the budget, is going to die by the end of 2026 unless we pass a new bill. Senator Teston and Representative Kurtz have been working hard on a compromise bill, trying to install oversight since the court ripped it from joint finance, to make people feel comfortable that we're not just, here DNR, here's 30 million, 70 million, go out and buy public land, right? Where's the oversight? And so maybe there could be things incorporated from this new bill, a 17 board member oversight. That sounds crazy. I don't think I'd want to sit on a 17 member board. But again,
and if I read it right, it was on WPR this morning, WPR.org. If I remember right, it said that it would be appointed, the 17 members would be essentially appointed by the governor, but like you'd get 2 people from this and 2. I'm not really sure how that works, but so this wouldn't be like the legislature wouldn't do that. So what is the? Did you see what their structure is for the 17 member, and how is that different from what the Republicans have offered or are suggesting?
I have not seen the makeup of it. My only fear is that when we empower unelected boards, so for instance, look at the Natural Resources Board, supposed to be the go-to between the DNR and hunters, fishermen and women and outdoor people, right? It's supposed to function as that guide to the department to really bring in the thoughts of our men and women on the ground. I believe they are failing, especially on the wolf issue, pushing forward a wolf season that does not coincide with what I feel where the public's at in northern Wisconsin, who has to deal with their wolf population, right? And so that's why last session, the Senate fired 4 Natural Resource Board members. Now, the governor tried to put new people on, and he did. That's his right. We haven't confirmed them yet, and some of them are worse than the ones we fired. And so I worry about that, right? A 17-member board determining how we spend millions of dollars adding public land, and what does that look like? So I don't know the makeup of the board. I'd have to see what it is and who gets confirmation. Like, is there Senate confirmation? I don't know. It just dropped, and I got to take a look at it. But the big thing I think to go back to is the price tag. Are we adding more debt than we're paying debt off? Stewardship right now has just under $500 million worth of existing debt from the purchases over the life of the program. So how do we continue to make sure to get a handle on that instead of adding to the problem going forward?
You've always, in all the years that you've been on, you've talked a lot about the financial aspects of things, but being on joint finance, has that taken it up a level for you?
There's more to that, because all the things I used to think about, like, man, I wonder how much that really costs. Once you're on finance, now I know how much it really costs. So I'm like, man, all the information I used to think or want to get a hold of has been laid on my lap, and we've been taking it all in the last 6 months, right? So it really puts more perspective on it, which is why we're more conscientious about it, right? What's our total debt load in stewardship? What's our total debt load on bonding for transportation? And people don't know the nuances. Like, we've done a really great job. Like, in transportation, we used to have, I think, like 19, 20, 21 cents of every dollar was going towards debt service. That's not a dollar that is now repaving your road, right? It's just going towards existing debt. I think we've got it down to like 10 cents or 11 cents because we've been using cash. We've been bonding less or the amount as we're paying debt off. So we're not adding to the transportation debt, and being conscientious of that moves the needle in the right direction so we can fix more roads later with the same amount of money because we're not carrying that debt. Same thing with stewardship. If we didn't have stewardship debt, I could buy millions more public land acres because I'd have that money freed up because we weren't carrying the debt. I don't have the interest payments. I can reinvest that into public land. So we just got to be a little smarter on how we do it.
All right. You had posted something yesterday I saw on Facebook this morning. I didn't get a chance to read it. Apparently Bill Berrien. Is it with an N or an M? Berrien or Berrien?
Berrien.
Okay. Yeah, There you go. You had shared, apparently did an interview yesterday, and you shared something. I want to talk to you about that and also about some upcoming election stuff. We'll do that in 15 seconds after a word from Spooner Health.
Compassion is at the center of everything we do. It's rooted in who we are and why we're here. It unites us as providers, neighbors, and as a community. Learn more at spoonerhealth.com.
All right, we actually have this. Shasta, there should be more transparency in some of the budget decisions. It is astounding how many people had no idea Nose Nelson was cut from the budget. Budget hearings and decisions should never be made in the middle of the night. Your thoughts on that?
So there is a lot of transparency. We held 4 listening sessions publicly across the state, one in Hayward. All of our joint finance meetings are public to view. All the publications that joint finance receives are online. Literally within the day, we get them ourselves. And so there's nothing done in the dark. The only thing this time, a couple of sessions went late, is because we were on this deadline to get in front of the big, beautiful bill that would have locked out federal funding on some healthcare issues, which we don't need to go into today. But that was our artificial deadline to be done by July 4th. So I think there was transparency. Now, again, Nose Nelson wasn't cut from the budget. It just has to be reauthorized. We were reauthorizing what? Debt. So we didn't reauthorize the debt. And so the language for the program is still there with no legislative oversight because we were stripped of it from the court. And so that's why some legislators are saying, how do we build accountability back in and then we'll get the money back? But no one wants to give a blank debt check to the DNR without more oversight, which I think we'll get there, which is why earlier in the spring, Republicans put out a bill to make sure that stewardship has oversight and reauthorize it. And it's got to work through the process. And now some of our colleagues on the other side, again, put forward their own bill. And maybe there's mechanics in there that work better. But again, the overall number is something I always focus on.
And when it comes to transparency, and this isn't, Shasta, about what you had commented on, this isn't about that at all. But when it comes to transparency, I think sometimes we kind of miss the mark on that. You have to seek out the information because it's there. You can find it, as you just mentioned, just about your thing. We do this and they're live. People can watch them. I know I get that a decent amount, right? It's well, did you hear about this? Like, yeah, we had it on DrydenWire. Oh, I didn't see it. I wish I knew more. But I'm like, but you have to go to DrydenWire to find. I can't force it in your phone, in your feed. I don't know what to tell you. But I do think for the most part, it's pretty transparent.
But in defense of her comment, people work. You don't have time to dig.
I know. Like, how can you get like an easily digestible summary of this that is kind of everywhere? That would be nice.
And it's hard to do. But that's why you elect people you think you can trust to do the job. But to Shasta's point, I have members in my own caucus that didn't know a lot of things that were in the budget, right? And they're like, well, we can't believe you did this. And it's like, well, we told you very early on, here's the papers. You can read them too. If you want to trust joint finance, do it. Great. You put me on joint finance. But then don't show up later and be like, well, I didn't know that was in there. I'm like, well, 1, we talked about it. 2, printed. 3, you had a copy
about it.
4, like you skipped the last caucus, so you weren't there. Like, I can't help you any more than that. And these are other legislators, so don't feel bad, Shasta, if something was in the budget you didn't know about, because not everyone, even people paid to pay attention, always pay attention.
It's funny because since I've been on the Washington County Board, we get these packets right before the board, and it's our county issued iPads, and they're getting a lot more to them. I think the last one we had 153 pages in this PDF. So you're supposed to read all of this stuff to educate yourself before you go into the meeting. I don't think a lot of people read all of it. I feel like they're just as surprised of what's going on as the members in the audience or in the gallery. That's funny.
I don't mind doing some skimming, but like when their first question and the answers on the first page of the packet, it's like, good Lord. At least pretend to read the first page.
Shot said I followed the budget process very close, staying up to 2. Oh my goodness, that a girl. It is hard to follow as someone not working in it. No, it is. Totally respect that.
Yep.
Yeah. Dan Erickson says, you thinking of running for? I thought we addressed this last show.
As long as Dan endorses me, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, there you go, Dan. If you come out and endorse him,
flatter Dan. I know Dan, and I got to meet Dan at a listening session with Dave. Very nice guy, and I do appreciate Dan's commitment to the health care of our community. He had a long career. But yeah, if Dan endorsed me, I'd do it, Dan. I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that. So I'll make that clear.
You're not doing what? Let's be clear.
I'm not running for Congress.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah. You had shared something on your page. I think it was just I don't know if it was your Senate Facebook page or just your personal page, but I saw it this morning. Actually, I saw it on Brian Melton. Brian Melton shared it from you, and I saw it this morning, but I didn't get a chance to read it. It was about Bill Berrien, and he had done this interview yesterday, and you had a comment about it. What was it about?
Yeah, which is why it's good there's a primary process so we can vet people, that haven't been vetted before or haven't been elected before. If you change parties, darn it.
Well,
I won't be doing that, Dan. But so yeah, I think his comment on a recent interview was he will not be supporting any form of concealed carry on any school grounds. So what does that mean? Obviously, in light of yesterday's events, this is a topic that's very heated. I've already seen it on our page. We don't even need to get into the craziness on both sides. Yeah. But the argument to that, we've tried to do bills because we want to let local school boards make the best decision they can for the security of their own children. And we know that one size fits all does not always work. So, for instance, I take Birchwood as an example. Sheriff Stewart has a limited budget because of you, Ben. And, there's probably only 2 officers on at night, 3 during the day, covering the whole county. Someday the village of Birchwood might not have a cop. They have 1 cop in their department. So at any given time, if there's a crisis, God forbid, you could be 20 minutes out from a response before a sworn officer can actually get to your building, let alone address the situation. That is not the same for a school in the city of Rice Lake, where a cop can be there within 45 seconds when they flip the sirens on, right? And so all we're saying is if the Birchwood School District decided, for security purposes, maybe we would allow someone to concealed carry, a designated staff member that has former training or training that we require, right? Whatever the school board decided. Right now, state law prohibits that. You are not allowed to do that. And at the same time, we put parents in a weird spot too. So if I'm a cop and I go to drop my kid off on school and I pull up under the pavilion and I drop him off and drive back out, if I had a concealed weapon in my car, as even a sworn police officer, I'm breaking the law, right? Because you can't have any concealed carried weapons on school grounds. And so someone's going to take this and say, Romaine wants everyone to carry guns all the time on school grounds. No, that's not it. All we've been saying all along in the legislature is that we should allow school boards to set up the policy that they believe is right. And under current law, we can't do it. And now in that interview, the Republican candidate running said he also does not support that. So that is something I think that's antithetical to our party, to where my position is. And so as we work our way to next August for that primary, people are making decisions who should be the standard bearer as a Republican. They need to know these facts. And that's why I share them, because people need to know before the election comes.
I think I saw a clip or two of that interview. I think it was on WBAY over in, I think it's Appleton or Green Bay or something. I think they asked him about marijuana. Would you be open to recreational use? And his answer was, I'm opening to listening. I'm like, all right, so you're running for governor. You probably know where you stand on things. I mean, I get the whole, that's a very interesting, but start making some pros and cons at least, or anything. But I don't love seeing those answers when you're running for governor or for a higher office. I just don't like that when it's like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to the people and I'll figure it out when you elect me. But we kind of need to know where you are before they're going to elect you, right? It kind of seems a little.
It's a double-edged sword, though.
Different approach, I suppose. Also on concealed carry, I think he had said that he doesn't necessarily believe that people with concealed carry should have to have training.
Right, which is
that was interesting.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? I think maybe even reference if a mom just wants to get a gun and put it in her purse for protection, she should be able to. I would recommend that she gets training on how to use it, but she doesn't have to. Why pay all the permits and all that stuff? And I don't know. I'm thinking you should know how. I mean, it's a gun.
Right.
You know me. I don't like guns. I like being around guns. But if I had one, I would like to think that. I would have to go through. I mean, if I could drive a car, but I have to go through a whole bunch of licenses and fee and all that. But it's not just the fees or the permits. That was just interesting. I never heard that before. I didn't know that was even floated out there for some people that think that you shouldn't even have to. And maybe there's a legitimate reason for it. You tell me, where do you stand on that?
So there's a number of states that already have this. It's called constitutional carry, meaning the Constitution is my permit. That doesn't say you have the right to keep and bear arms as long as you pass this test administered by your respective state, right? It's you're allowed to just do that. And the flip side of that, Ben, is you can open carry. So that mom, if she carries it on her hip where you can see it, she's allowed to do that right now. That's your right to carry a gun almost anywhere you want, untrained, on the outside. But as soon as you conceal it, all of a sudden you need this permit. So that's part of the argument too. Like, she can carry it in a holster on her hip. Open carry is totally legal with no training or anything. But as soon as she hides it under her purse so you can't see it, she needs this permit.
Well, that's dumb.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense. So some people argue, well, you shouldn't have to have that permit. Or again, right. And there are reasonable people that would say, man, is it that hard just to go take a class and get comfortable with the weapon first?
Would have been it is. So that is a law right now. Because again, never own a gun. I didn't know that, so I apologize. I could just go buy a gun, pass a check, but I don't take any nothing. Just buy a gun.
Yep. I mean, that's why we've got, we'll get calls from police stations or police forces where someone gets a call that there's a guy walking down the neighborhood with a deer rifle on his back. So they'll go respond and say, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And they'll just say, I'm out for a walk. And they'll be like, well, why do you need to carry this out for your walk? You make people uncomfortable. But technically, they can't do anything about it. So if he's not threatening anyone, he can legally carry a firearm, not concealed, anytime he wants, anywhere he wants, right? And so that's part of the argument of, should you have to have that? So it's interesting that his position would be, we're going to lessen the regulations on concealed carry, but you can't do it on school grounds. So I guess maybe it makes sense if you want no training, but that's why we can't have it on school grounds ever. If there isn't training. Maybe. But there's training right now. And so he's still saying no. So again, I think local school boards, especially rural areas that have a different culture, a different appreciation, or maybe have staff. You might have staff in a building saying, I will do this. We have people that leave the military and now they teach tech ed, and they're the best trained people in the world to ever carry a firearm, and say, hey, if you want to designate me, and we don't tell students, only a few staff members know, but I'm here, you can't do that as a school board. And that's not something the state should be telling them they can't do.
Brian, we've talked about this, buddy. You just need to put in like a question, right?
Mike,
I can't put that on the screen. It's way too long. So I'll just read it. It'll cover. He had two questions. One, will Wisconsin taxpayers be responsible to fund the remaining 63% loss of federal funding? What is it? I don't know. Put it. I don't want to go through and read the whole thing. Just if you could shorten up, Brian, please, that'd be great. Then we can put it on the screen and actually know what you're asking about. Talking about the governor's race and announcements. When do you think we're going to start seeing announcements from our area legislators? Obviously, Tom Tiffany has been, thinking about doing this. There's the 25th, 23rd. Have you made your mind on what you're doing? When do you anticipate making that decision?
Yeah, so I've heard early September for Tom. That's obviously the worst kept secret in Wisconsin and national politics, is that Congressman Tiffany may or may not be a gubernatorial candidate, which if he does, I know Tom. I appreciate Tom. I work well with Tom. I think he'd be a formidable candidate on our side. Yeah. If he does that, obviously that triggers the 7th, which I think was getting to Dan's comments earlier. That's a safe seat. I'm sure it'll be a thick primary. Yeah. I am not running for it, but I would say the 7th is a big district. We have a lot of great communities and a lot of really qualified people, both already in the legislature and outside the legislature. What we do not need is someone moving into the 7th district, pretending they're originally from here and running their seat. I've heard rumors that there are people pushing for people who live on the edge or outside of the 7th district to move into the 7th, to run and be the nominee. And I don't like carpetbaggers. Like, it's insulting to us. There's good people in the 7th. You can't pretend you're from the Northwoods. You either are or you aren't. And we don't need someone pretending they're from here moving into our seat to run for that. So I would watch that very closely. I think it's probably going to be a busy primary. It's a safe Republican seat. If someone young gets it, they could sit in there for 20 years, right? So it could be everyone's only shot. So it's going to be a lot of probably good people running. But I will not support anyone in a primary that does not live in the 7th district or that moves into it just to run. Can't do it.
Is there like a timeline? Is like a bar? Like if you've lived here for at least 5 years or 2 years, or is like nope, doesn't matter unless you were born and raised here.
I never really thought of that, but anyone that's moving into it now just to run for the seat,
oh sure,
that's absolutely a no. Like if you were gone and you came back here and you've been back here for a few years, like your family's here, whatever. But yeah, moving back here just to run is a problem.
Yeah,
I think we saw that. Someone that ran against Duffy a long time ago, like moved from Minneapolis, moved back to his Wisconsin roots. I'm like, you haven't changed your address yet. Like you're not from here. Stop pretending you're.
Was that Tom Tiffany with Dick Osman? Or that's just another one because he was living in Minneapolis, but he was from here-ish, sort of.
Dick was from here. He was funny to watch in parades. I did a few with him. When I had a meeting with Dick at the Price County Electric Co-op. He was running the same year I ran for the Senate seat. And we walk in there together. It was him and I and Representative Green. Tom couldn't be there at the time. It was another event. And he comes in and he goes, man, I think you have more signs out than my congressional run. Just in our 25th district. And I said, yeah, I probably do, Dick. I don't know how many signs you have, but I just got a kick out of that.
And anyway. Is your election up again then? Because remember, it was when the maps got changed, like some of the districts or Senate ones were, and the other ones weren't yet. So, is yours up this year?
So we flip flop. Half the Senate's up, odd districts up, even districts are up every other 2 years, right?
Right.
So this cycle, all odd numbers are up.
Got it.
So like 1, 3, 5, 7.
Yeah. And have you made? You're running again?
My intention is to run again.
Sure. When are you going to make that official announcement?
I don't know the answer to that.
September, October. Is that pretty much whenever? Is there like a deadline for a lot of these? I'm not talking about governor's races. Somebody could get in at the very last minute.
Sure.
But in terms of like the Assembly and the Senate races, don't you think just for the sake of campaigning and fundraising and et cetera, you got to get in at some point here this fall? Is there like by Halloween? Like if you haven't announced in these Assembly or Senate races by November 1st, you're going to be behind the 8 ball.
I think, and it's exhausting for the public, as we've seen. Like we used to get a break, and now like presidential cycles start the year after the last November, and people campaign for 3 years now. And same thing with governor races, not as bad, but people jumped in early. Josh Schuman jumped in early, but again, sometimes you do that to try to clear the field, right? So whenever I ran, we typically always got in early, because I wanted to get a head start, because I only have 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, to meet as many voters as I can. I can only physically knock on a door, every 3 minutes once I get into a community, right? So there is a window of time to meet and reach voters. And so the sooner you get in, the more time you have to reach voters. And so that's the advantage of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you get in too early, do you burn out? Are you not as flashy like these gubernatorial candidates? Do you burn all your cash up early on, and now someone jumps in February and they've got the money to run through August and you're already burnt out? So there's a lot of, it's different. Legislative races are different than statewide.
Yeah. I think like the area races, I would always probably recommend getting it earlier the better.
I would say fall. Yeah, you would definitely want the fall because, papers already have to be drawn. Remember, you got to get signatures to be on the ballot. There's a window for that. They're due by June 1st. But you can't take out the papers till maybe it's April or February. I can't remember. I'm sure our county clerks will yell at me for not knowing this or giving the wrong information. But you need to be out there a little bit ahead of time.
All right. Well, Brandon put in a question again. So, that's all I have. Anything else you want to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Well, fall session is here. Judging by my background, I'm not in Madison right now, but it is gearing back up. So if you have ideas, questions, concerns about particular issues, we've got bills we're gearing up for the fall. One of them came right from Linda Hand, your ADRC director in Washburn County. we've got legislation drafted for caregiver indicators on your licenses, right? So this is the same thing we did with Collins Law. We were the second state in the country, maybe the first, or Florida was first, to have an indicator on your registration. So if you're in an accident or you get pulled over, an officer knows you have an indivisible disability before he gets to the car. So if you have a driver's license, but you have maybe you're autistic, or maybe you're deaf in one ear, you have a physical but invisible disability. So the officer knows, speak louder because I can't hear you. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not being a jerk. I'm not escalating things. So it's good for both the people and it's good for the officer, right? More communication. So we passed that when I was in the assembly. The idea came from a kid in Rice Lake and a mom who wanted to make her life better for that kid because he had an interaction with an officer that could have went better if the officer knew. So we passed that bill. So now we want to extend that. And we saw what happened. My staff are going to make fun of me. I can't remember the name of the famous actor, but it kind of stems that died in his home. No one found him because his caregiver died, and then he was at home alone and passed away. His name slips me now, but he was in a ton of movies. Anyway, we want to do that because, if you're caring for your loved one,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I've got a 2-week-old baby. Yeah.
2-week-old baby. No kidding. Give me a break,
right.
buddy.
And I've got 2 other monsters. So if you're caring for a loved one, let's say Jerusha is just elderly or maybe disabled someday, and you're going to town to get groceries and you get sidelined by a bus and you're in the hospital for 5 days and no one but you knew Jerusha was at home and depended on you to come home because you don't have family in the area. Now an officer would read that and it'll say, wow, Ben Dryden's in the hospital. He's a caregiver. We got to send someone to his home because someone is depending on him coming home and he's not coming home. And so someone will go check that loved one that you're providing care for now that you've been taken out of the scene for whatever reason, right? And so we prevent these potential death or these other situations to make sure our loved ones are checked on because we have that communication. So that idea came right from Washburn County. We've got the bill drafted.
That's awesome.
Jan is going to run it with me, and hopefully we can get it done this fall.
Is that going to be? So I have a question, and it could be kind of contradictory here, or a criticism, maybe. Is that going to be something that you could kind of sign up for or be a part of, or is that something that's going to be all the time? Because I'm a little concerned about potential. I mean, a cop seeing medical records. I know they're not seeing medical records, but potentially a slippery slope here about, and I'm not saying just about cops, but first responders, etc. But knowing a lot of that medical history after they pull you over, before they come up, that just seems a little, I don't know, I'm uncomfortable with that. So is this voluntary to do this?
Absolutely.
And it's not like your full medical history. This is just, it's kind of like I'm a organ donor thing on your license or something.
Yeah, and we had a lot of debate. We were going to put it on their license back in the day, but then the disability group said we don't want that there because if you go for a job interview and don't want to reveal your disability, it shouldn't be on your license. So Trust me, I thought we were going to do driver's license, make it simple. I learned a lot, and that was the last bill. So now it's only on registration when your information's ran, could be by EMS or police, and it's voluntary. You don't have to put anything on there.
Then I love everything about it. Oh, good. Brian has Republicans allocated $50 billion to rural areas to compensate for the massive cuts to Medicaid. That's only 37% of the projected gap. Will taxpayers be required to pay for the gap?
I don't know the numbers specifically, Brian. He has some numbers. I don't know what gap he's talking about. And again, these cuts to Medicaid is assuming people are losing their coverage. There's no cuts to rates. In fact, in this state budget, I think we invested the most in any single state budget into our hospital systems across the state. More than $1 billion in new revenue is going to be flowing to our hospitals, raising reimbursement rates so providers actually get the cost of care when they're seeing people who are under Medicaid. And so this is probably the most substantial budget we've done, really, I think, almost ever in a long time for rural healthcare. And so we'll see a lot of this play out. If there are gaps, we'll address them as we go. But I don't buy into the sky is falling stuff. And if there's problems, we'll fix it. That's our job, and we'll work on it. But until it's there, we haven't seen anything yet. Just like DPI, the Department of Education is getting cut. And so I asked DPI, what cuts are you seeing on your end? What cuts are coming to local schools? Well, there's nothing. Well, stop putting out press releases yet when you don't even know what's coming down the pike, right? So sky's not falling. If there is a problem, there is a gap, we'll work on it. That's what we do.
What are your plans for Labor Day weekend?
Oh, man, we always go over to Weyerhaeuser to the polka mass. They have a polka mass over there. We've done it now since Romaine was 1. And then I think people expect to hear yelling kids, so we can't let them down. And so, yeah, they do an outdoor mass, polka mass under the tent. Weyerhaeuser, a lot of Polacks over there. It's a fun time. They do a chicken dinner. So we do that every Sunday for Booster Days over in Weyerhaeuser.
Really? And then what about Labor Day itself? Because I'm finding out a lot of people that I know aren't really planning on doing anything. They just want to take a day.
So I hope it doesn't rain. Our plan is to cut hay today and hopefully bale it on Monday. So we'll see what that looks like.
Oh, fun.
So if that's our goal, it's going to rain on Monday because, it's not supposed to rain. Farmer Ben, we don't want rain on hay. That's how that works. So, yeah. So it'll be a fun weekend home. Enjoy your time off. Obviously, school is kind of starting and people are getting back in the flow of things. But, yeah, reach out. The fall session's here, and we've got work to do, and we continue to add things to our roster.
All right. I'll see you next month, the last Thursday of the month, except remember, it's going to be on YouTube. Switching over because now the Facebook has decided that, we're just going to – this is like 5 years ago. They were giving priority, like 6 times priority for live shows on Facebook in terms of organic reach. So you're more likely to see it when you just scroll down on your feed, any live shows, or even the recordings of the live shows. So, yes, this is where you want to be. So that's what we're doing. Yep. And then they're like, here's the thing. Reels are really popular now, so that's what's going to be on forever, and which is just like the little shorts video. You see them all the time now, like all the freaking time now. Yep. And we're going to delete all of your Facebook videos, live videos, after 30 days. So thankfully, when I started this, I loaded them into our YouTube channel just kind of for storage, a quick reference, an easy place. I didn't care if we had any followers or not. It was just like, I'm just going to store it here because I didn't want to keep a hard copy here or like have to get an external hard drive. I'll just put it on YouTube. So glad I did that. Otherwise, we would have lost hundreds of shows. So
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's time to move on.
Maybe you should have let them go. Did I say anything stupid?
I know it. Someone had asked me if I would ever think about running for like assembly or something. I'm like, no. Have you looked? At all my shows, all the dumb things I've said. Like I would get killed in an election.
Your commercials write themselves, Ben.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. All right, thanks, man. Special thank you to Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn for once again taking the time and coming on for a chat. And thank you for all of your questions and your comments. I'll see all of you right back here on Tuesday. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day.